Hello, and welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Jo Wheatley, and my friend and co host, Zoe Hawkins.
Hi, everybody. We're continuing our Six Principles of Emotion series today, and we're bringing you Principle 2, which you are not your emotions. And the reason we're bringing you these principles over the course of the next six podcast episodes is because we feel really passionately about the role emotions plays in coaching. And still, so many coaches, I don't really they feel equipped or confident or competent enough to lean into conversations with clients around their emotions or necessarily see the places where those opportunities open up in conversations. So by sharing these principles with you, we're hoping that you will start to see where the opportunities to do deeper, more enriching work with your clients lies, really for the benefit and the service of the client as well as for yourself. So yes, today is all about you are not your emotions.
Yeah, that's our second principle of emotions coaching, and really is focused in on identity or over identification with an emotion. So, the examples of this are when you might hear a client say, I'm not confident. Often there's a just word, I'm just not a confident person, or I I always feel anxious. Um, Either I always feel anxious or I always feel anxious when I'm doing this. It's where the person seems to have the emotion has almost swallowed the individual up. And so they're almost in this, ball of the emotion. It's become part of them. And that often will get in the way of them achieving what they want in the way that they want to. And sometimes offering even the principle or some of the background of the emotions principles can start to help to free the person up to explore the possibility or help to remind them of who they are separate to that emotion, and instead as somebody who can access that emotion, when it's useful or experience it from time to time. And that's built around the idea that emotions are designed to move. It has the word motion in it. And when we get stuck with emotions, that's when people often seek help from others. And that might be through coaching, it might be through counseling, it might be through EMDR or, many other different, supportive interventions.
I think the thing around you are not your emotions, like really just to put it in a simple way, is like you can feel stupid without being stupid.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel embarrassed without being embarrassing. You can feel a lack of confidence without not being a not confident person. And I think what we know from coaching clients, what we've experienced is people don't know that. Like it sounds really simple. People don't know that and they don't feel that way. So if they go into a meeting and perhaps they do a presentation and they stumble their words and it's just not the delivery that they wanted, they come out and they're just like, oh my God, that was embarrassing. Like, what are they going to think of me? Like, I'm so embarrassing. Like, how can I be a leader if that's the delivery that I get? Well, create using this principle, you can create a pause between, look, you can feel embarrassed without being an embarrassment. And sometimes that's enough to be like, what? What do you mean? It creates a break between experiencing the emotion and understanding what the moment that you experienced that emotion meant. So it's twofold, isn't it? It's like sometimes, yes, it can become such a part of you that it is your identity. And I don't know how many people I know that talk about being an anxious person. And you may also hear people say, my anxiety, like they own anxiety. Versus what you may hear certainly in English language when English is your first language. I'm feeling anxious. Even better, I'm feeling anxious right now in this singular moment. I'm feeling some anxiety. Somehow that becomes like my anxiety. I am an anxious person. So through using this principle, we help people to break it down, to like look at what's your identity, what's an emotion, what's a thought, what's a feeling, what's an action you're taking, what is something that happened. And in doing that, helps you to process the emotion that you're experiencing in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, a client could say to you, I'm terrified about talking on stage at the annual conference. I'm absolutely petrified. It's the I am. I am that thing. And it's that phrase is it's exclusive, isn't it? I am that thing. It's like I am only that thing. And it kind of pushes everything else out. As soon as you experiment with or offer your client the opportunity to say, I am feeling terrified, even just saying the word feeling almost spreads it out a little bit, thins out the intensity of it. And if you add on, Zoe gave you some examples, but if you were to say, you know, you're feeling terrified about what? I'm feeling terrified about walking out onto stage and my mind going blank. Okay. Is there anything else that you're feeling terrified about? Well, I don't know, dropping my prompt cards on the floor, but probably not that. The one thing that I am terrified about is just that initial bit walking out onto the stage. And so, exploring that's like what is the terrified feeling? How, if it were a friend, how might it be wanting to help you? What if it could speak to you and you could have a conversation with it, what would it be asking you to do in order that it could trust you to do that thing and therefore it could leave you alone, watch from the sidelines? And the person might need to reflect on that, obviously, and they might then say, I think it's about preparation. I think it's about preparation. Okay, what preparation would you need to do in order to not feel terrified? But you might also be exploring with them, what would you like to feel? So if you don't want to feel terrified, what would you like to feel? And
Mm.
often clients will say, I don't know, because they are the terrified. And so they haven't had the opportunity to explore that. And once they start to explore it, you'll see that their facial expressions start to shift. They'll get some more color back in their face. And so that combination of exploring what they want to feel, as well as them stepping outside of being this other thing that is kind of trapping them, and the obstacle for them, can be really, really helpful. And actually, it's quite simple once you have the courage to offer and go, exploring with your client in this way, and also obviously having contracted with them to explore these things.
I think this principle can be so liberating for people, particularly those who will share like, oh, I feel guilty. I am guilty all the time, or I feel guilty all the
Mm,
time, and or like what you said before, like I'm not a confident person, or I'm not a confident presenter, or I have imposter syndrome. I am this thing, and these are very common things that we would talk about in a coaching space. They're very normal. They're everyday experiences, and for these clients who have this experience as part of their identity, simply introducing this concept of you're not your emotions can be liberating. So, who are you when you're not experiencing imposter syndrome? Who are you when you're not feeling anxious? Or, like, are you the example you always give, Joe, is do you feel anxious when you clean your teeth? you
mm,
know 99% of people are going to say no, and of course there'll be some people who have debilitating anxiety, but you're unlikely to be progressing with coaching with somebody who is experiencing everyday,
mm,
like really crippling debilitating anxiety. Like most people are bringing everyday emotions to the table that you experience as a coach, that I experience as a coach, and those are often the creases in which we're working with emotions coaching. And when somebody is able to start to say, well, I don't feel it when I'm with my team, and I don't feel it when I'm with my manager on my own, and I don't feel it when I'm with my colleagues. And so where do you experience it then? Do you know, it's always when this person's in the room. Okay, great. So tell me more about that. It's a way to just give people space with their emotions and to not have the emotion be the all-consuming thing in the room. And some people will lead with the emotions. So they'll walk into the room and they'll open up a conversation, say, my goal is to not feel like an imposter. So first thing you do is, so what do you want to feel then? But some people won't start with that. Some people will come in and say, like, I want to work on my leadership presence, and I want to work on, you know, being recognized by the board for my potential to give myself the greatest chance of promotion. Okay, super. Doesn't sound like that's got emotions coaching in it at all. But when you lean into the conversations and you start to talk about, okay, so if you had that now, like what would that be like? And what's getting in the way? And you're searching really and coaching for the gap. I would say 9 times out of 10, the gap that you're looking for in coaching is an emotions gap. It is often what people feel, because we know our feelings are connected to our thoughts and our actions. And so if the action is to get promoted, you know, there's some feelings in there somewhere. Um, so yeah, using this principle, you are not your emotions, can just be really liberating and enlightening for people. And it can be very rapid that they're able to step into a place of action and change.
Another way to look at this is helping people to understand that a part of themselves is feeling an emotion, but maybe not every single part of them. So, yeah, part of me is feeling anxious, or a part of me is feeling disgusted, and a part of me is feeling sad, or a part of me is feeling excited. And often people will talk, won't they, about that, that fine line between excitement and fear and so on. So we know that emotional experiences are closely related. And so even being able to offer that to clients, I think, is important. So, but also remember that we aren't telling our clients. So when we share on the training these 6 principles, we're not saying these are the rules of emotions coaching. We're not saying that at all. What we're offering is a semi-structure, or a way to collate ideas about different resources and ways of being able to coach a client and open up new conversations to support them to have that transformational coaching experience. And it might be that a client says, you are not your emotions. I don't really get what that is. But when I think about that, I think about this, and I can think that actually, yes, that might be a thing for me.
It's a perspective, isn't it? I think that's what these principles are. They're perspectives that we invite our clients to try on and play with. You might introduce it, say, look, there's these things called the 6 principles. One of them is you are not your emotions. Just want to offer that to you. Like if you were to try that on as a hat and you look through that, you look through this situation with the lens of you are not your emotions, like what comes to mind? It's they are places to be able to limber your clients up to be able to see things differently.
Mm.
So go on.
I was thinking about another way to consider or explore this principle can be around, rather than the person feeling like they are the thing itself. Because people experience, when somebody says, I am this or I am not that, we could think about it as they're describing their whole body experience of it. But it might also be that other people might experience that person, that when they have a conversation with them, they can't quite reach that person because there is something, this thing that gets in the way of them, that interrupts that connection with them. So exploring with the client around that kind of experience, they might get that and they might say, yeah, like when I say I'm not confident, it's kind of like when I go into a meeting with people I haven't met before, it's almost like there's like a shadow version of me that goes in and I'm there watching it, for example. And then you can work with the client around around that metaphor and around the principle. And so part of this is about being able to um improvise. Like improvisation in coaching, I think, is really, really important. And that is about leaning into your intuition, but it's about responding to and learning to talk the language, walking side by side with your client. And where, they might be able to go so far and then they get stuck. And then we might offer a question or a metaphor or a principle or a perspective, and they might bounce against that. And that enables them to make a bit more progress. But again, we are kind of tuning into their experience, their language, their belief systems, and so on. And so you are not your emotions. In many ways, it's a belief that is offered as something that they could try on. And what would that enable? What can
Mm.
they see if when they try that on? that they couldn't see before? What would be possible with that that perhaps wouldn't be possible before?
We often get asked around the good emotions, don't we? Because we talked here about loss of confidence, imposter, anxiety, fear, and all of those. And people might think they're the bad emotions. So go and listen to the previous podcast. We talk about emotions are neither good nor bad. But this can be really powerful when people are working with, happy emotions, joyful emotions, the good emotions. And a classic example of this might be where someone has an identity around being a happy person or a joyful person or a funny person or a light person, a calm person. Doesn't really matter what the emotion is, but we all have identities connected to emotions. So if you have somebody who sees themselves as a calm person, and this might come up in coaching when they're talking about a project, and they might say something like, gosh, like, I feel strange about this project. Like I'm a calm person and I don't know why this is bothering me so much. Well, by being a certain type of person, you can be denying yourself like emotional experiences. So it creates this internal conflict. Like I'm a calm person, so I can't feel stressed. I'm a happy person, so I can't feel sad. Or I'm a funny person, so I can't feel somber or serious. And these internal conflicts can be what keep people up at night because suddenly the experience they are having in the here and now doesn't match the identity that they have of themselves. And, it's really about listening to the language that the client brings into the coaching conversation. It's very easy to gloss over things like, oh, I'm usually such a happy person. I don't know what's bothering me. Ha, ha, ha. Like that would be a classic presentation of that person doing their happy person identity, making a joke out of an emotional experience that they're having. And that's a real moment just to lean into that and just say, oh, it's really interesting you describe yourself as a happy person. Like, what other emotions do you experience? Well, I experience joy and I experience, feeling humorous. And what else? Well, now that you mention it, right now I feel strange. And they may not have the what we call the emotional linguistics to be able to talk about that experience because their identity of being a happy person is getting in the way. But if you can't talk about the experience you're having, it's not going to go anywhere. You can't process it. Like I say a lot, you can't change what you can't see. And if you can't see that you're having an emotional experience, it's very hard to process that and change it into something that's going to serve you. So this principle of you are not your emotions is one to really tune into the language that the client is using for the clues of where those doorways are to be able to introduce these perspectives.
And that piece around identity that you're talking about there can also be what they have been told that they are.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily a decision that the person has made. And, these can be survival like techniques or actually just harmless narrative, that people have picked up, through their upbringing, where in comparison to other people, maybe they did generally seem happier, for example, than others, or perhaps they did seem more loving than others or kinder, than others. But actually, when you over identify with it, so if you're like, I'm a kind person, what does that trap you within? Because yes, it's lovely to be able to be kind and to be generous to other people, but this can play into where strengths are overplayed. So you'll see, well, obviously coaching, like, there are many methodologies and theories that overlap in psychology and link to one another. So, what can feel unfamiliar or really new, actually, when you start to explore, you see, oh, I can see connections to things that I'm already familiar with. Or it doesn't feel like such a leap to learn about this and add this into my toolkit because I can see now how that aligns with my approach to coaching. Anyway, but as you said earlier, so, to be able to support clients to move out of what can feel like a straitjacket to be defined in this like identity of one emotion for a period of time or sometimes for a whole life can be absolutely life changing for people.
Mm. If you want to see emotions coaching in action, so there's one thing talking about the principles, there's another kind of bringing it to life. We do have a demonstration of Joe and I doing one of the coaching activities from our emotions coaching practitioner training. So if you want to go and have a look at that, please do. You can head on over to igcompany.com/emotions demo. And it's one of the principles which we haven't got to yet in our series. I think we do one of the activities from Principle 6, which is you can choose your emotions, and that'll be coming up in a few weeks' time. So do stay tuned to the podcast. If you're enjoying these explorations of the principles, please rate, subscribe, leave us a review, whatever you can do to share the love, and we enjoy hearing about those.